thank everybody for coming today. Pam, are we expecting anyone else that we should be waiting for?
Let's just go over who's here. I have James Turner on the phone, Enid Schildkraut on the phone, Sylvia Wong Lewis is in New York City, Patricia Poland is in Albany, Frederick Harris is in New York City, and Dr. Bellinger is on the phone. Is that everyone?
You also have us DOS people, but yep.
Linda DeSalvo, Laz Benitez, Anthony Giardina.
Exactly.
Are here. So
Great.
I think that covers all that said they would participate.
Wonderful. Well, I'm Nina DeSalvo. I'm counsel to Secretary Perales, and I was going to lead the meeting today. I know you all know Dan Shapiro, who was here last time, but I think I'm going to take the baton for now. And we have a lot to talk about. I know the work groups have been doing a lot of work over the past few months, and Laz can tell us in a little bit about some of the information we've gotten up on the website. We've really, I think, made tremendous progress over the past few months, and I hope we can kind of keep that moving and move towards, making the website a resource for the community, and also look at the additional work that we need to do to move some of the resources that we've collected into a report and into ensuring that we're meeting all of our statutory obligations, which we really are doing as part of the work that you all have done over the past few months. But I think it's a matter of coordinating it, formatting it, and getting it out to the community. So I'm excited to see all of you today. So I was looking just at our agenda. We can dive right in, but I wanted to see if anybody has questions or suggestions before we get started. I'll take it as a no. All right. Well, Patricia, who's in Albany, she's kindly offered to give us a little bit of an update. I know you all know from our previous meetings that the State Education Department has been doing a tremendous amount of work through the Common Core Curriculum Update Initiative to incorporate some of the topics that we've been talking about here about African American history into the curriculum and infuse it, as this committee has really suggested, infuse it into the work that students do in public school classrooms in New York. But Patricia, do you want to tell us a little bit more about, actually,
Sure.
Did somebody just join the call?
Nuria Bonet-Owens from Syracuse.
Oh, hi, Nuria. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Great. We just got started, and we were just talking a little bit about some of the exciting work that we have done these past few months and figuring out all of the next steps that we have in front of us. But we're going to start with hearing from Patricia a little bit about the Common Core social studies curriculum in the state.
Okay,
Who is just speaking?
I'm Nina DeSalvo, Special Counsel to Secretary Perales, here on his behalf.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, this is Patricia Poland speaking, and I am an associate in instructional services in the Office of Curriculum and Instruction. And I wanted to share with you actually a couple different types of information. First of all, as the Common Core had been rolled out first to ELA and math, there has also been the development of modules for teachers to use in ELA and math. And one of the pieces of the Common Core instruction is the use of nonfiction in their work. So that with that, what we see now at this point, I haven't delved deeply into the K through 2 program. That's done by a vendor. Core Knowledge is the vendor for the K through 2 program, and they actually took their product that they already had and are just modifying it for New York State. The beginning at grade 3 for ELA, we have a different vendor, Expeditionary Learning. And what they have so far completed is that we do have in grade 4 an entire module on the leadership of Frederick Douglass, Susan B. Anthony, and DeWitt Clinton. In grade 5, we have a module that looks at sports and athletes' impact on culture, and the pivotal text for that one is Promises to Keep, How Jackie Robinson Changed America. Going up in the grades with our grade 6 in a module regarding rules to live by, there's a particular book, Bud Not Buddy, that again is looking at it's a very good book, looking at some racial issues. Moving on to our 7th grade, there is a module entitled Understanding Perspectives, and it's Slavery, the People Could Fly. The module focuses on the autobiography of Frederick Douglass. So that's a whole module that they're looking at. In addition to, the students are going to select an episode from the narrative and rewrite it as a children's story. In addition to that, in our grade 8, we have a module that's referencing taking a stand, and the students used To Kill a Mockingbird. And the most recent module that's in development right now for grade 8 is a civil rights movement module, which is using Little Rock 9 and Brown v. Board of Education as some of the primary documents in that. So that we're having students delve in through their English instruction on some topics. Simultaneously, in the world of social studies, we've been working on taking our existing core curriculum, aligning it to Common Core literacy standards, because in Common Core they established literacy standards for history and social studies beginning in grade 6. And so we were looking at that. In addition, we've incorporated social studies skills and practices, which in fact align to the just recently released National Career, College, and Civic Standards put out by the National Council for Social Studies. So that in all of this integration work, we are now looking at our social studies revision. The document itself, a revised draft, is supposed to be posted for public comment hopefully within the week, and I would strongly urge each of you to take a look at it to be sure that we're doing a good job of providing a balanced perspective in history. What we have done is we've maintained the current course structure as far as overall content, so that in grade 4, the students are looking at state and local history, and in particular, as they look at the colonial period, they're made aware of slavery as part of that social structure. In 4th grade, they continue when they're studying the 1800s. They look at the age of reform, and they include looking closely at Samuel Cornish, Frederick Douglass, Sojourner Truth, and Harriet Tubman. You'll notice that there's intentional overlap between the ELA and the social studies. We really did try to coordinate so that the students are getting the chance to be exposed in one area and dive deep in the other. In addition, that course also does address the 1890s migration to northern cities and moves into the Harlem Renaissance. The 5th grade course is still a course. Right now we've redefined it just a little bit because we are calling it Western Hemisphere. It used to be called the United States, Latin America, and Canada. And we've decided that it would be far more appropriate to just literally call it Western Hemisphere so we don't ignore the area of the Caribbean. In this course, the students are certainly going to be examining the transatlantic trade, the Middle Passage. They're also going to be looking at the struggle for independence in a variety of countries, which will include Toussaint Louverture in Haiti. They're also going to be looking at the struggle for rights, and the course itself will look at comparative cultures, so that will afford an opportunity for the students to look throughout the Western Hemisphere and look at how the various groups of people are treated in U.S., Canada, Mexico, and Latin America, hopefully. The 7th and 8th grade course of study retains its 2-year U.S. history structure, but it's actually U.S. history and New York history. We want to make sure that the students are getting the state history required by law. So again, here in 7th grade, they will get, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to skip 6th grade. 6th grade is Eastern Hemisphere. And so in Eastern Hemisphere, it's very much focused on ancient times. It doesn't really come up to the age of exploration. However, then we go into our 2-year U.S. New York program for 7-8, and again, the students are getting exposure to quite a number of people and their roles, including going from the colonial times, looking at the role of African Americans in westward expansion, and looking at the role the Underground Railroad played throughout New York State. They're also going to be focusing on, in 7th grade, they get up to and including Reconstruction, so they'll be looking at how things were handled at that point. 8th grade, continuation, they will get an exposure to the Harlem Renaissance again, and at the same time moving it into the civil rights movement, and including Thurgood Marshall, Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, and Malcolm X. When they get to 9th grade, 9-10 is still a combination 2-year program, global history and geography. The emphasis, as the people have looked at this 9-10 program, is truly make it global, make it world perspective. And in doing that world perspective, it puts things in the focus of the world and examining slave trade as part of the entire world. 11th grade is the intensive U.S. course, which is the commencement level course. And again, throughout this course of study, you will still see the role of African Americans throughout the United States history, getting more specific and getting into the court cases. And so I hope that as you look at this, you will see that we have retained all the work that my predecessors had done with regards to examining the role of African Americans in our history and where are they being taught throughout our schools. It is now certainly covered at all possible grade levels, and as I said, including incorporating it into the ELA modules. I hope that helps you. And again, if you watch Engage New York website, that will be when the social studies document will be posted and released. You'll be made aware of it through that particular website.
Hey,
Thank
again,
you.
Which website is that?
Sorry, what's that?
The website.
Oh, can you say the website again, Patricia?
Right. The website name is Engage New York. And what I will do is I will forward to all of the members on the email that information so that when it is posted, you will receive a notice from me. So you'll know exactly where to go to find this information.
Okay.
Wonderful. That's really, really helpful, Patricia.
Could I ask a couple questions? First, when you say module, how many?
Who's speaking?
This is James Turner.
Thank you.
How long a period, how many weeks is a module?
The ELA modules have been designed so that each module is 1 quarter of the year. That students are expected to accomplish 4 modules through the course of a school year. Teachers are given the opportunity to choose which modules they are going to use. At this point, we have for example, in terms of completed modules, in the 6th grade, we've got 5 completed modules. I think in each of the in the 3 through 8 classes, there's 4 modules have been completed, and they're now working on the supplemental modules.
This is Frederick Harris.
On the website, can we get information about the actual content of the modules? This is Enid speaking.
Absolutely. If you were to go now onto Engage New York, you can download the entire module with all of the supporting information and material that comes with it. It's all available. The only thing they don't put there is the actual text. If in fact there's a book that's referenced, it tells you right in the overview, but all the packages for the modules, all the activities, lessons, recommendations, it's all there on the internet at the Engage New York site.
I have a question of a clarification. This is Frederick Harris. You said teachers will have a choice about which modules to use. Could you say more about that? And how do they go about choosing? Is it based on if they are comfortable or if they like the material? Could you say more about that choice?
As far as the choice, because New York State has always been a state where our schools are locally controlled, as the state education department, all we do is make recommendations, and in this case, we're making resources available. We do not stipulate anything as far as what basis they're going to make their choice on. It will certainly be a local decision at the school district level as to which modules they will be using. Each of the modules address across the board the various Common Core learning standards, so that I believe that's where it leaves it open for the teachers to choose which ones they would be using. I'm not 100% sure because I'm not an ELA person, but I do believe that they may need to do, because there's like a 2A and a 2B, it may very well be that they can choose between A or B in each of the cases. I could secure more information about that from my ELA partner, because that's not something that I'm directly involved in. The other piece that I can tell you is that once the modules had first been developed, there had been a bit of confusion with regards to how best to implement these. And for that reason, it has now been clarified that modules are resources. These resources could be adopted exactly as they are. They can be adapted to meet the needs of the school population, or in some districts they're actually not using them because they had already developed their own Common Core aligned materials, because curriculum decisions, again, are at a local level.
Hi, this is Sylvia Wong-Lewis. I had an additional question. You mentioned about the Common Core curriculum being aligned with the social studies. And I wanted to know, the part you mentioned about the public would be invited to comment on the curriculum. Could you tell me a little bit more about that? Is that something that, will there an announcement be sent out, or is that something that we could possibly post on our website, or is it a press release that's going out by the state inviting the public to comment? I just think that's a wonderful opportunity for the public to become engaged in how we're teaching social studies. Could you tell me more about that?
Certainly. We have already put out a draft of the document. It was actually almost a year ago. The K through 8 draft was released for public comment. And then in March, we released the 9 through 12. Based on the public comment received at that point, revisions have been made to the document. Among the revisions that have been made is to be sure that we are including a balanced perspective throughout these courses of study. When the public release of the revised draft is made available, it will be the full package of the introduction to what the framework is intended to be, because again, the framework just serves as an overall guide for individual districts to design their own curriculum. It'll have K through 8, 9 through 12. Sylvia, I am certainly happy to make sure that the information about the posting of the document can be made available to Laz, so he can put that on the web, as well as for everyone on the commission. There is an accompanying survey that when people get to the Engage New York website where the document lives, they will also get to the link for the survey. And so that at that point, that's where we certainly can take input and ideas from people if we need to do additional enhancement to this work. So I can also double check because I don't think there would be an issue with the management of SED for us to message this, but I have to check with them because it's, at this point, everything related to this is in management's hand. I'm just waiting to hear, but I will ask them.
Okay, thank you.
And how long is the public comment period?
We generally permit 4 weeks for public comment.
And we can help promote that on our site as well.
Okay.
Great. Does anybody else have questions for Patricia?
to make sure, this is James Turner again. This will be up on the website by how soon?
I honestly don't know because I've given it to management and I have not yet heard back. We were hoping it'll be up before the week is over.
And then it's 4 weeks after it comes on site.
Yes.
Comes online, rather.
And just as this is Sylvia again, just as a point of clarification, this will be up on your website, not the commission's website, right?
Exactly. What I can provide to Laz will be the link to where the document lives and where the link is for the survey.
Works
Excellent.
just as well. Thank you.
Yes, that's great.
Okay, great. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Patricia. That's really informative and helpful, and it comes at the perfect time just before the release. So, Sylvia and Laz, do you guys want to talk? One or both of you want to talk a little bit about all the work you've done on the website? I know it's looking a lot better. We've got some stuff up there. There's always more to be done, but.
Yeah, again, I wanted to thank Ms. Lewis for helping get this off the ground. It was quite a bit of work, so I do appreciate it. I think as you'll see in the agenda here, it says website redesign. If I may, I think we have the website where we want it as far as the design, but obviously one thing that we always need help with is more content. And Patricia was kind enough to connect me with Catherine Gilbert of the Museum Association of New York. And she has been absolutely wonderful in getting the word out to her various members. And since that time, we've gotten things up from the Wings of Eagles Discovery Center, the National Abolition Hall of Fame and Museum, and so forth. With that said, we also tie in information coming from the governor's office, regarding African American dates. We also put news items on things in the news, such as Jackie Robinson this year, and so forth. And members of the commission had great recommendations last time as far as where we can go fishing for content, such as Weeksville in Brooklyn, the African American Village, the Bureau Ground. So we need more of that, and if we can have your help in getting more of those suggestions on a consistent basis, that would be fantastic. Some of the suggestions that were forwarded before, such as Weeksville, those don't have a web presence, so to speak, where there is content there. So we're looking at more entities that have ready content that we could link to and come to us. So please have those suggestions coming. And we look...
Where do you want these? Just notice, this is Enid, that the New York Historical Society has their past exhibition, Slavery in New York.
Okay.
There's a link to that. You can put that whole exhibition link up there.
Great. I will get in touch with them.
Suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
To whom? To Sylvia?
Yeah, Sylvia, myself, will forward an email. I think between Sylvia, myself, and Pam, we're all covered. Between the three of us, some of us, it'll definitely get to me. And we have put up actually a news item on the New York Historical Society when one of the local papers ran it. So good to know that it's up and running. I always like to just check in with them and make sure that they're appreciative or give us approval to put it up, or else I would do that on my own. So, yeah, keep them coming, send it to us, and we'll make sure to connect with the head of that particular museum or entity and get that up as quickly as possible. Because what I'd like to do, I'd like to get new content up on a weekly basis if possible. So anyone in the commission, please keep those coming, not just when we have meetings such as this, but, in the interim where we don't have meetings, would love to keep that communication. No, there are no bad ideas. We'll look at them, vet them, and see, and if it's appropriate, we'll get it up.
Okay, that's helpful.
Well, I thought, this is Sylvia speaking. I thought that recently this film that's very popular now, 12 Years a Slave, I thought that that was a wonderful opportunity to talk about Solomon Northup's life and about Saratoga, New York, and just to engage the community, students, and the populace at large about this about slavery. So I was wondering, how I wondered about how could we do that, because I think last time we were together we were talking about Abraham Lincoln. Remember we were talking about it?
Yep.
That it was a film, and then we wanted to talk about the engaging of dialogue on the whole question of slavery. So
Yeah, as far
what do you
as
think about that?
well, as far as 12 Years a Slave, which is a great resource, there was a great article, I believe, in the New York Times or Wall Street Journal. I'm pretty sure it was the New York Times that they used the movie for context, but it was about Solomon Northup. So we put that up in the news section.
Oh, you did?
Yes,
Okay,
we
I didn't see
did,
it.
which obviously we'd like to make more apparent. I know that when Dan was involved, we didn't want to have any original language. It should all sort of be taken from pre-existing articles and so forth. So that's why we did not move further in having our own write-ups, because that was the tack that we were taking before then. If that has changed, I love writing original content based on these characters, not these characters, these historical figures, which are important because that will give it more prominence on our page. So I don't know if there's something that exists out there that is more comprehensive, and if not, we can definitely draft it, write it, pass it through everyone for approval, but I just want to make sure that that's something that we want to do, as we were not doing that in the past for whatever reason.
Right. Well, I would add to that there's also, I mean, it's a slave narrative, but it's also rewritten for children. I think it's for the 4th grade level.
Okay.
And I had written a review, a film review, and some of my readers had sent me the link to the children's book. And since it's geared for the 4th grade, I thought that would be a good way for, say, a young person to read a slave narrative.
Absolutely. That would really help, again, put it front and center on the website. When we take something off the Times, we usually put it in our news section.
Okay.
But if this speaks directly to children of that age, you give me the link, we'll take care of the rest.
Okay, and the
That's
other
great.
item that I wanted to bring up, it was in the news recently. They discovered another African American and Native American burial ground. Did you hear about that? It's in the Bronx.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did anybody hear about that?
Yes, I did.
Oh,
Thank you.
yeah, and it was just in the news a few weeks ago. They were doing some construction and they discovered this African American burial ground. So now they're doing, officials are, before they start building on it, now they're doing research about it. So I thought that's an ongoing news story really, but it's really pertinent to what we're doing. I thought that would be
Absolutely. I did see that, and it was on my list to go on. I wanted to find out if there were any, the political battle, so to speak. Just wanted to wrap my arms around it more. But I think that's a great start to put on the news section. And once it unfurls, we can definitely add it to the main section, depending on if there, once it's what the plan is, we can expound on that.
Right, and it did make me think about what we were wanting to do with the African burial ground in New York City. I think we wanted to do something on our website. I wasn't sure.
We did.
what.
I paid a visit to them.
Oh, you did?
I did,
Okay.
because I used to live in the neighborhood, so I sort of went in there, introduced myself. They don't have web-ready presence as far as a website is concerned.
Oh, okay.
So they have plans for that, where they'll have something on the website that we can grab. Right now, all of their content, so to speak, is physical in their museum. So we can go down there, take some pictures, and do an interview. But again, that falls into creating original content, and if we get approval for that, I'd be more than happy to do that. But they are in the same boat as the African American Village in Weeksville, where they exist, but they don't have quite a web presence that we can borrow from. But hopefully that'll change in time.
Yeah, and I just want to go back to something Sylvia said, which I think is really important. Your note about the article you put together related to for fourth graders, or something that children could latch onto and understand. And just going back to like the statutory duties that all of us have and our responsibilities is, I mean, we want to bring more attention to the issues of African American history, of slavery in this country. And I think the website is a tremendous way to do that. And all of you hopefully will be inspired to forward Laz interesting news articles that you see. But as you're doing that, think about our role, which is really focusing on education. What is being done in terms of education related to the African slave trade, related to the vestiges of slavery in this country, related to the way that African American history and the history of slavery is taught in our schools. So as I think of the website as sort of a way to compile all of the information that all of us find about these issues, but remembering always that our focus is sort of on the extent and breadth of education in our state related to this. I think that's why Patricia's connection of us with the Museum Association of New York, that is a way to educate people in New York about these topics beyond what's done in public schools. So I think that is really an important way for us to understand and catalog the extent of education in our state, but always coming back to that as a touchstone, because I think all of the work that you all are doing related to the website really is part of our, cataloging all of the work that is being done related to these topics
Connected together
in the state. So I just wanted to focus us a little bit on those issues. So definitely send anything that you find on to Laz.
And I'll have Pam send out my email me directly, call me directly. Always happy to speak.
Can I ask you something about the resources section? Because I've been on this commission a while, and in the beginning, I know that we did a big bibliography, which would obviously not be for students, but it could be a resource for teachers. Are you going to post some version of that on the website?
Sure. If you'd like to send it to me, everything.
I don't have it, but I'm sure Pam, you must have.
Yeah.
There was a large bibliography, and then there were. We could also do. I don't think we ever did this, but there are things like films that are available, relevant films on Netflix or streaming that would be good resources just to list there.
I agree. We had talked about that, and it's something that I think we can move on now. Again, a lot of this touched upon who's making these recommendations. But again, I think now that we have a little more clarity, and that a directive is perhaps in the past, we can make a movement to get those up.
Harold Bellinger, I think it's imperative as we proceed that we update that bibliography, including, for example, such texts as Atlas of the Transatlantic Slave Trade, even if that becomes an addendum to the report that is submitted to the legislature. That becomes, I think, an important focal point as resources for the districts and for teachers who wish to revise their modulars as they exist presently without, well, I'll leave it at that. Yeah, also, this is James Turner. I think it is extremely important to direct attention to the manner in which we construct the framework for African American history. Slavery is clearly a critical moment and important, but African American history is not reduced to slavery itself exclusively. That the history of Africans in America before slavery, during slavery, and after as well. And I think that's important, particularly as we're introducing it to young students.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point. I mean, also of course reflecting on our charge, which our charge is to some degree, it's not narrow, but it is, our charge as the Amistad Commission is focused on, I'll just read from the statute, the African slave trade, slavery in America, the vestiges of slavery in this country, and the contribution, oh well, it's broader, you're right, the contributions of African Americans to our society.
It's broad,
Yeah. But yeah, I think
Yeah,
you're
I
absolutely right.
And I agree with what James said, and also you could expand then the museum part as well as the bibliography to include, the museum part could include things on Africa as part of the heritage.
Yeah, sorry, is that Nuria
There are
speaking?
a lot of exhibitions that deal with African culture that I think people would find relevant
Yeah.
to this story.
Absolutely. Don't quote me, but in the news section, we also look at matters that are not just slavery related. When the movie 42 came out, there was a great tutorial to explain kids who Mr. Robinson was, and we got that up there. We've also put up some museum exhibitions that, in the context, might be regarding slavery, but are about the African American experience and culture today. With that said, that's just been bits and pieces. So with your help, if you identify anything of that nature, we obviously would like to get it up. Again, do need your help in identifying those, whether it's in news stories and so forth. Bury me with it, I ask. Bury me with it, because that way we'll have a lot to work with. And I agree, I think we could expound on that. So if you have anything to that end, please forward it along. And obviously Nina and I and Sylvia can talk about the direction that we want to move in expanding the subject matter.
Yeah.
This is Sylvia again, and I just wanted to touch a little bit on what James Turner mentioned about the manner in which we construct slavery and African American studies. And I have noticed lately in the news that there is more focus on the slavery part, the business aspect of it. And New York really is very powerful in that sense, in that it was the center of slavery from the business sense, from the bankers and the insurance companies and all of that. And I don't know in terms of how we teach children. I know I never learned about this when I was in school, but the whole business aspect of the economics of it. And so I was thinking there must be a way that we can cover some of those articles, some of that information that's coming out now, that it wasn't, in other words, we're focused so much on the black people, but the white people were also impacted by slavery too.
Yep.
That's kind of what I'm trying to say. I want the voice of the white people who are acknowledging slavery, who want to reconcile with slavery. As you know, I'm very involved with an organization that is very much in sync with Mandela's forgiveness and reconciliation regarding slavery and peace and all of that. And so I would like for us to have some way that white people can feel like they're part of this dialogue too, because they know that their families were part of the whole slave story too.
Yeah, so related to that, this is Frederick Harris. I'm new to the commission, so I'm not sure what's all been collected. And so I'm glad we're having a conversation about how you construct the history of African Americans, particularly in New York State. I was wondering, does there exist or have there been any thought to some sort of freedom trail in New York State, which would identify key sites, key moments from the Niagara movement, which was the start of the NAACP at the turn of the century in upstate New York. Rochester is a very key place, a place I used to live. Frederick Douglass, who seems to be throughout the curriculum. Auburn, where it was the home place or the burial place of Harriet Tubman, I believe. And carry the story all the way to New York City and talk about things like Wall Street and how, in many ways, slavery contributed to the development of the Industrial Revolution and the financial markets in the United States. I think that's a very important story. And so I don't know if there exists a freedom trail or some sort of trail of African American history, but I think that would be very good supplementary material that can be used for teaching.
Definitely, and I think that I like what you're saying, Frederick. This is Sylvia speaking again. The last meeting we had, we talked about we framed it as a cultural map because we wanted what we were doing to have some benefit to New York State as a whole, that New York would not only benefit in terms of education, but it would also help the other towns throughout New York State. And what you're saying is really important because, like for instance, this movie. I mean, I think that in Saratoga, if people go to Saratoga because they have a Solomon Northup Day or week or something they celebrate in that town, we could actually promote that and have people, probably more people would go to Saratoga, you know. Or, like you said, the Freedom Trail, maybe people would like to follow that. Maybe we could coordinate with the tourism department of the state, some project or something like that. And, you know, between the commission, the Amistad Commission, and the tourism board of the state, and focus on that.
It seems to me some of the history has been supplanted. I'm not sure if it's true or not, but someone told me that John Brown is buried in upstate New York near Saratoga.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
yes.
Oh, see, you know. So who would have known?
So I think
Harriet Beecher Stowe is buried in New York State too.
Who is?
Harriet Beecher Stowe, who wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin, is also buried in New York State. I'm trying to see where.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of stuff would be fascinating. I mean, at the very least, to post on the website, and then, you know, to the extent we can organize it as a trail or something else, I mean, maybe that comes next. But if we collect the information, especially stuff that's specific to New York, I mean, that is our charge. It would be so cool. So, yeah.
It would also be good for tourism, too.
Absolutely, yeah.
This is Nuria speaking. This is Nuria speaking in Syracuse. And New York State, we are fortunate to have actually quite an active Freedom Trail community. It's been quietly running for about 15 or 20 years. And there actually used to be a New York State Freedom Trail Commission.
Wow.
And then out of that, there were several Freedom Trail commissions that happened at the county level. I know we had one here in my county, Onondaga County. And there's a lot of work that has been done in this whole Freedom Trail vein. And there's an esteemed historian, Judith Wellman, who specializes in women's history and Underground Railroad Freedom Trail history. And she does cultural resource surveys. And so what she does is go into a particular county. For example, she came into Onondaga County and did a cultural resource survey, a preliminary one. And when it was completed, she had identified about 750 sites in Onondaga County alone that were authenticated based on her 5-point criterion to be connected to the Underground Railroad and abolitionism and African American life. And I know that she's done 3 or 4 or 5 of these kinds of studies at the county level. So as you continue to build upon that, you develop quite an infrastructure related to the Freedom Trail. And then, of course, the National Park Service, they play a big part in this. They have a program called the Network to Freedom, where sites and venues can make applications to get official notification of being part of the Freedom Trail. So I think a lot of those things are in place, but we just have to pull them together and create the special map and kinds of things up on the website.
We could probably ask for the information from our website. We could, I guess, make a pitch to the public to tell us, well, if you know about these places, let us know. and then we could actually follow up in some way to authenticate it or just to find out about it.
Absolutely.
And keep it going.
Yeah, and we had talked about the interactive map. Technology-wise, we're not there yet, so that remains static. But we're hoping that we're going to get a content management system in place at some point mid-year. Don't quote me on that, but hopefully that'll give us more flexibility to do things of that nature, where people can go on and we're a resource to map out where they can go. So we haven't forgotten about that. We're just waiting for things to be in place, because we sort of share cyberspace with a lot of other agencies. So, but that is on tap. But again, you need to make us aware of these, forward them to me, whether it's links, bits and pieces. Just have that flow of information coming, and from internally we can piece something together and put up a nice news story, something that they can come to us. We want to be a resource, so as a call to action for them to find out more about what's going on. But we need that initial help from members of the board. So again, just reiterating, keep it coming more frequently if possible, and we'll make sure to get it up.
Well, I was just looking at our agenda, and it seems like in some ways we've covered sort of this educational and cultural resources piece. Patricia, I know you're the liaison on that. We've mentioned a number of really fascinating things that are out there already. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
No, in fact, I had already mentioned the fact that there is the Underground Railroad project, which is locally based here in Albany, but certainly is far-reaching throughout the state as a source for information. And based on what our colleague in Syracuse has just said, I'm wondering if they're actually connected in terms of from Freedom Trail days to this. I actually realize now that I don't know if I did or did not send to Laz the little blurb about the opportunity for an archaeological dig in Fishkill that was being sponsored by the Underground Railroad project. I don't recall if I did or did not send that on to you.
I never saw that, so if you can send that to me at your convenience, that would be great.
Right, because the other thing that the group here has been working on the restoration of the Harriet and Stephen Myers residence here in Albany. So that's been a local thing that's been happening, and as you heard earlier, Casey, who is no longer with the department, and I facilitated connecting Catherine Gilbert to this commission, so that you certainly are tapped into the Museum Association. At this point, information that we get, I send it on to Laz when it's appropriate. That's where I stand.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of overlap between sort of these subcommittees, because I think we're using the website as a place to collate all of the information that folks are collecting, and that I think would include educator input. And I mean, I guess, Patricia, I'm sure you at SED are getting all sorts of input from educators as well. I know Temu sends her regrets she couldn't make it at the last minute today, but if anyone else wants to comment on that educator input piece.
This is Sylvia again. I wanted to talk about a reading list for children. I had been informally collecting from various educators titles of books that would be great for teaching children about slavery, about the African American history stories. And so that's something that Laz and I had actually talked about from the beginning, that we wanted to, as we said, be the one-stop shop for teachers and for people who really want to learn more about American history. So I just put it out there that we are trying to put together a reading list for children. There are lots of books for adults, but we do want to identify the books that you think that would be really great for children. Like, for instance, the artist, Feingold, the lady artist, and whose paintings and things you see all over the subway, in 125th Street. She has an art book that tells a slavery story for children. It's just an art book. It's a picture book. It's really for K to 2. It's really a young. And I was surprised. There are some books. It's not a lot, but I thought that we could be a resource to do that. So if anybody has some titles of children's books, please let me know or send it to the labs, because that's an ongoing project that I adopted as my special project.
Maybe it even builds on the bibliography that we've already worked on.
I would like to see the bibliography, because maybe it's already done.
Yeah, if we can just pull it, that'd be fantastic. And
we
keep
could
adding
just
to it.
extract it and say, okay, these are books that you can use for young children, and these are books you can use for, more like 4th to 6th grade. We'd like to really set it up like that.
Yeah, and update it as we go forward.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think this gets to, if I jump forward in the agenda a little bit and look at, I tried to really focus this meeting on making sure that all the work that we're doing, that we recognize that really what we've already done, a lot of it, goes towards the very specific statutory duties. And for example, the first one of surveying and cataloging the education that's available, I mean, I think having, information about, be it Freedom Trail sites, information about museum exhibits and other educational opportunities, collecting a bibliography of children's books and books for adults about the history of African Americans. I think all of that goes to this first duty of surveying and cataloging what's out there here in New York State. So just reflecting that we are moving towards that, and I think we're using sort of the website as our platform for placing that type of information. And I know we've also done a few years ago, some of you, I think maybe you were around for it, some work actually doing like a survey with responses from educators, looking at some of what types of education is actually happening in the classroom, which I think is changing so much based on what Patricia and SED have been working on. But I wanted to get additional thoughts from all of you, sort of in what else you think we should be doing to sort of survey and catalog education.
Well, I just will contribute a little bit about, I think that it's important to have the voice of the teachers here. I mean, we do have, I think, 2 teachers on our commission, and they really explain to us how they only have 55 minutes in their day, I think in a week, that they can cover this kind of material. I think that's what one of our commissioners said at our last meeting, and they only had this finite amount of time. And then, as you brought up, as one of us brought up that, and how you construct what you're going to teach and how the choices that you have, it's really very tight. But I just also want to salute everyone that's part of this commission too, that New York is really a pioneer in doing this and really should be saluted, because maybe you've heard that there are other states trying to revise American history. In San Antonio, I think, they don't even allow slavery they don't even allow that word in the school system. They now call it, and because I met some teachers from there, it's been in the news, they do not teach slavery in their schools. And many school districts are getting away, are doing away with the teaching of slavery and black studies. They feel it's really not necessary. And one teacher told me that they're not allowed to use the word slave, that they must use the word transatlantic trade. That's what they have to use. And this is like Tea Party stuff, but this is a reality.
Sounds like.
So I really want to salute, New York State for staying the course and seeing the importance of incorporating everyone's history as part of the American history narrative.
Yeah, I want to say to James, I appreciate that comment. I hope that New York can perhaps become a counter model as to what should be done in terms of education to some of this very negative, reactionary, and modern-day book burning that is taking place in places like San Antonio and also in Arizona and Colorado, New Mexico, as that we also explore as an educational and cultural resource of great dimension the Schomburg Center for Study of Black History and Culture in Harlem, that's on 135th Street and Malcolm X Boulevard. It is a resource that has just rich sources and, ought to be more widely known and used, particularly for teachers in the New York City area. They do tours and programs for young students. They actually have a junior scholars program that they have students apply to from around the city. And they also do exhibitions in their spaces in their foyer and first floor, and have a bookstore that have a considerable number of titles for children's books as well.
That's a great resource. Do we have any info about that on the website?
No, we don't.
No. That's great. That's wonderful.
Well,
The Schomburg.
actually, I take that back. We did look into them. Again, they don't have that resource readily available on the web. So if it's another way they can get it to us, whether it's a PDF, that would be
Yeah.
great. But we did. They were on the list
They
along
come
with.
up in the New York Public Library. They're part of the New York Public Library.
They do, but they don't have anything that's web ready there to share. It's just a page that says here's where we're located, but not necessarily photos of the exhibits or anything that's too engaging apart from a listing. So that's the challenge we ran into with Weeksville, that African American Village, and others, and the African American Burial Ground. They exist, doing great things, but they don't have the material ready available that it's easily linkable. So if
you
there
need something that's easily
that
linkable.
we need something that we could put on the website, and obviously the easiest way would be through their website, but without a ready web presence, it's hard to define what they can share with us that would be useful
Yeah.
to us.
Or maybe if there's like a recent news article about this center that we could add in our news clips. I mean, at least we could bring folks' attention to the great work that they are doing.
I have a question.
One of
This is Frederick Harris. I have a related question about teachers, because one of the things that I've noticed, at least some of the teachers, even in independent schools, is that sometimes I would get calls about coming to lecture about a particular topic in a school, or advice about what should be covered every so often, not that often. And it seems to me that for many teachers who have a desire and interest is that sometimes they don't have a resource. And I wonder, are there any summer programs that would be focused or could be focused on teaching New York State teachers about slavery and civil rights in New York and elsewhere?
That's a great.
There is a resource. This is Miriam speaking in Syracuse. There is a resource for teachers focused on slavery and Underground Railroad that's based at Colgate University.
Where is it?
A history professor named Graham Hodges has been running this program for about 3 years.
And
it's right up at
Did you say at State University of New York?
at Colgate University in Hamilton, New York.
I see.
And it's run by Graham Hodges, and it specifically services and case teachers who are interested in teaching Underground Railroad.
This is Harold Bellinger. There was a tremendous effort put on teaching the teachers through the Summer Institute on the issue of slavery. Unfortunately, through the State University, unfortunately due to budget, that disappeared. But I fully believe that through the efforts of the Commission, that topic should and can be brought back on the table. and I have a couple of thoughts about how that can be done. But before we get to that, I have a concern. What happens when the final report is issued by the commission? That automatically means the commission goes out of business. I think between now and then, and I've done it on my own, by looking at the Ford Foundation and 4 or 5 other foundations, we can acquire private funding to help with the website and a number of other initiatives. And I'm not prepared to put it on the table in the form of a resolution right now, but I think within the next 2 meetings I will be naming the foundations and what we can possibly try and achieve as far as funding, and through the use of the reports going to the legislature. That becomes critical. And then through that match, or a portion of that match, again, seeking a summer institute on the issue of the diaspora, teaching the teachers.
Yeah, Dr. Bellinger, you're going right into, well, both of you, Frederick as well, talking about some of the next steps. Maybe I'll back up to what Frederick said, which folks contacting you to go into classrooms and provide expertise. And one of the things we can do as a commission is compile a list of volunteers who would be interested in doing that type of work, who would be interested in making themselves available to educators to provide expertise. I know all of you folks on the commission have that expertise, but beyond you may know folks, have contacts in your communities who would be able to be a resource. I don't know that that's something we would want to put on the website publicly, but at least we could put on the website that it's available for educators who want to find an expert in their area who would be interested in helping out. And so I guess what the plea on that one is to have folks send suggestions to Pamela of volunteers willing to share their knowledge of African American history with educators, with students. If you yourselves are willing to be on that list, if you know other folks who might be interested that we could reach out to, I think having that resource available to educators would be really great. And then going to what? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's appreciated as well. Further, it provides another link, and that is once you're in the classroom, once you're in the school, it's a link not only to that principal but to the superintendent to try and to get that both individuals make them more sensitive to the topic matter as it spreads through the curriculum or core curriculum, because the state education department, as is stated, is in an advisory capacity, and it's going to be up to the principals and the superintendent to make it happen in their curriculums. And it's quite a challenge on Long Island, believe me, a major challenge. The last thing that I wanted to share is please, commission members, do not forget about the global aspect of the economics of slavery, and I wanted to key in just very quickly without going back on that. When I was at Oxford, England's GNP quadrupled under slavery, quadrupled. And it wasn't the peasants, so-called, or middle class who benefited. It was the government and the nobility. And it was through that 4 different regions of the world, including the United States and certain segments of the economy, also enhanced their wealth. And that made its way to Wall Street. So there is a global dynamic to this that must be shared. And if we're talking about a core curriculum, that needs to be stated in the 9 to 10, 11 and 12th grade levels. I just wanted to emphasize that as we're looking at a paradigm and constructing an example of the economics of slavery.
Right.
Henrietta Marie is a fine example of that.
Right. This is Frederick Harris again. One of my former colleagues at the University of Rochester, a historian by the name of Joseph Inakori, has written extensively on what you just talked about. So he could also possibly be a resource to give perspectives on that the global dimensions.
Great.
Well, I think one of the things that we have to keep in mind is the idea of learning. In other words, obviously staying on our focus of the question of education as it relates to the schools, the classroom, and the curriculum, but obviously keeping the public in mind as it relates to public learning and awareness, and making sure that the things, the models that we develop and the things we put together, we're looking ahead and perhaps thinking about how we might share that with, for example, the National Museum of African American History and Culture as they, roll out their debut in 2014 or 2015, and really making sure that New York State is on the forefront of what we're doing inside of our state, as well as how we're contributing to the national discussion, keeping in mind the idea of learning in general and not just education, classroom specific only. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah. Was that Nuria?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Nuria, I think you're right, and I think a way maybe to focus our thinking and our work on all of those things is can be to compile some of this stuff. I mean, first on the website, but then we really want to compile sort of our findings and some recommendations in our report to the governor and the legislature. And I think we have some more work to do to really collect all of the information that we think is relevant to this. I mean, just the ideas that people have talked about here today are really wonderful and fabulous, and we just want to get those all in one place, I think. Maybe some go on the website, maybe some don't go on the website, but they could still certainly be ideas that we build on for our report. And a lot of the stuff that we've already collected can sort of go in there. But I think what may make sense is for us to develop sort of an outline of what the report will look like, and then all of you can, as you're submitting information and materials, maybe you'll say this may not be relevant for the website, but this may be relevant for the report. So I'm hoping to share some information, so sort of a format with everybody, and then everybody can sort of go filling it in. But I think right now, by sending things to LAS that are, relevant to, educational and cultural resources, that will certainly be part of our catalog and surveying of what education is available. And then we can put that both in the website and in the report. I don't know if that sounds like a reasonable approach to really trying to, put all of our materials in one place.
Well, it is, this is Sylvia again speaking. It is a lot of work to do, and I think it was either Laz or Daniel that said at the last meeting that we were also going to look at PhD candidates who were working or some advanced students, graduate students in the State University of New York system as possible resources. Like this could be one of their projects. Since we did not have a budget, that, this could be their graduate assistantship to produce this or that the commission is trying to do. And I don't know if we even followed up on that, or, if we ever had a talk with any of the state university campuses. Like you have a friend at, Frederick, you have a friend at the university that's already done some work. Maybe he has
It's a private institution.
Oh, it's a private.
Right.
But there are some graduate students getting PhDs or master's degrees in the State University of New York system, who this could be a project for them, and they already are getting a graduate assistantship, so we don't have to really pay them. We were trying to figure out how can we get all of this work done with no budget.
Right.
So that's something we could look into. I don't know who we would call.